Spanish 4, Science and Technology, Vocab, 41 through 45. Fábrica is factory. And again, notice the accent mark. It says, hey, don't stress the last vowel. Don't say fábrica, stress me, fábrica. Now, in Spanish and English, they share three of the same letters, F-A-R, F-A-R. But everybody say prefab. Prefab. If something is prefabricated or prefab, it was made in advance in a factory. Like a prefab house, all the parts are made and you just put them together, okay? Or we are going to fabricate things at the factory. Now, useful is útil. It starts with a U and ends with an L. It's useful. It's useful. It starts with a U and it ends with an L, okay? Now, here's what I want you to notice. Say utility. Utility. In English, if we say, wow, this has a lot of utility, it's very, very useful. You might have heard a utility van or a utility knife or a utility belt. It's a van, a knife, or a belt that's very, very helpful. It's very, very useful. Another way to remember it, you ask your boss, how long will I be working here? And he says to you, or she says to you, you will work here till you are no longer useful. Get it? So useful is útil. Now, it's a lizard word. Remember, if a word ends in L, Z, R, or D, the very last vowel gets stressed. So this accent says, hey, I know I'm a lizard word, and you expect to stress the last vowel, but don't. Stress me instead. An accent mark always says break the rule and stress a vowel other than the vowel you normally would expect to stress. Now, in English, in means not or un. Like you can be sane or insane. Something can be probable or improbable. So útil is useful. Inútil is not useful or useless. This is not useful or this is useless. Now, we've seen this before. We saw código de ética, code of ethics, and ética is ethics. What's strange is ethics in English is plural, it ends with an S, and ethics in Spanish is singular, okay? Now, again, in English it has an H, but in Spanish the letter H is silent. So there are several English words like ethics that when you give a Spanish equivalent, the H just disappears, which makes sense. As far as I'm concerned, if a letter doesn't make a sound, why do we include it in the word? But hey, that's just my personal opinion. Now, to access, like you are allowed to access a computer program or access a room or have access to information, is acceder. Now, it does have four of the same letters in the same order. A-C-C-E, A-C-C-E. Here's another way to remember it. See, I do have access to the information. Or see, I do have access to the information. Okay, that was kind of weak. Let's do our post quiz. I will cover up the Spanish. Please take a few moments, look at these words and phrases and say the Spanish equivalents, or even better, look at the English and write down the Spanish equivalents to make sure you know how to spell them. This has been Spanish 4, Science and Technology, Vocab, 41 through 45.